Going. Maybe, perhaps, we're live. What's up, everybody? Glad you're here. Glad you're hanging out with us. Thanks for being here on a wonderful Wednesday evening and what's becoming a cool fall evening / period of the season. So thank you for being here. We're glad we're hanging out with you tonight. We're going to be talking about snails because I just thought it was time to talk about snails again. I've been getting more and more questions about snails, how to get rid of them. Are they bad? Are they good? Are they eating my plants? Are they not eating my plants? So I thought we'd spend a little time, not a whole mess load of time, but a little bit of time talking about, once again, snails, some good features, some reasons why you might not want to get rid of them. If you do want to get rid of them, some quick little tips on how to do that. So that is kind of the plan here tonight. Are you a snail fan or a snail not fan?
Generally speaking, not really. Unless we're talking pretty mystery snails, then count me in.
Okay, so you're going to make the distinction between snails that you find lovely and pest snails, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, and so yeah, we're going to talk about that today. Little special secret for you. I didn't put it in the title because I don't always want to do that. I want to reward the people that are here just for being here, hanging out. We're going to do a giveaway today. So I think I'm done announcing the giveaways. Like, we're going to do a giveaway because I want the people who are here every single week that are just hanging with us to have the special reward and to increase the likelihood that you're going to win the things. So I'll talk about the things a little bit later. It's a relatively random bunch of things because that's just what I felt like doing in my random sort of brain way. So we got some cool people here today. All of you. Moderators, thank you so much. We got Oink and we got Dave.
Yay.
And I thought I saw a few others, but this chat is already moving kind of fast. So thanks to moderators for holding down the fort. Thanks again for everybody who's here. Things going on, videos that have happened are happening this week. Last Sunday, I did a little video on the tanks of Aquashella. If you haven't seen it, check it out because it was probably... And I see James Fish from Fever is here. He was at Aquashella.
Hey,
I'm sure some of you others were there as well. This Aquashella that had passed was probably the best collection. It's certainly top 2, but it might have very well been the best collection of tanks that I have seen in terms of aquascapes, in terms of effort that was put into the aquascapes, both for the competition and for just the show in general. So if you haven't seen that, it's a short little video. It's only about 5 minutes long. I hit the highlights. Check it out. I think it was pretty cool. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Love the tanks.
And what did you do today? Please tell everybody on your channel, The Smallscape.
Oh, yeah. I had fun making this video. It's tiny fish, and what's the smallest tank you can keep them in? It's officially a series, and this is part 2.
It's officially a series. How
That's
about
right.
that?
Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
It's fun.
I want to say sorry to the members because I was actually very sick last week. I got the the galloping goopers, as you like to call it, from Aquashella, and I didn't put out a members video last week because my voice was basically gone, and I was more or less fighting a reoccurring theme of coughing fits and spiking fevers and not sleeping for
long
periods of time. So I would just, as soon as I lay down, it was time to cough, and I would do that until it was time to get up, morning time. So better now, thank you. So I promise tomorrow I will do my job and stop slacking off. So that's what's coming out tomorrow. And then Sunday we'll have a video on primetime, and I haven't decided which one I want to do just yet. So it'll be a surprise for both of us. So that's what's going on there. The 30th, which is a Sunday, we have the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association swap. I'm going to put the website down in the chat here. It's GCCA.net. So there you go. We'll do the swap on Sunday the 30th, and we're going to be bringing all kinds of cool fish. If you're interested in going to the swap, if you're interested in the fish that we have, check out primetimeaquatics.com about 3 or 4 days before the swap starts, and we will have a list that you can pre-order. Highly recommend, because this past weekend we did the Greenwater swap. Awesome. Thank you for everybody who stopped by and said hello and bought fish. But it's always heartbreaking, right? There's always like 3 or 4 people like, hey, you still got these? You still got those?
I know.
And our fish tend to go fairly quickly. Because I don't know if you're aware of this or not. I mean, if you've seen what we do with the swaps, I would say our primary motivation is not getting rich off of these swaps. Our primary motivation is to bring in fish if we're not already breeding them, make sure that they're quarantined, make sure that they're healthy for at least 3 weeks, bare minimum, but usually 3 to 4 weeks. And a lot of our fish, sometimes 6 to 8 weeks, are in Chicago water. They're doing well, they're eating, they're happy, they're showing great color, they're active. And then we bring them to people that will hopefully enjoy them as much as we do. And we just think that that's important right now, to have people have a good experience in the hobby. And so that's one of the things that we try to bring to these swaps. So all that being said, if you are in the area, you go to these swaps, I would definitely consider pre-ordering as opposed to, just hoping that the fish that you want are there when you get there. We bring fish to the swaps to sell, but sometimes they go pretty fast. So that's what's going on in terms of where we're going to be in the upcoming near future. Anything you'd like to add? Anything I forgot?
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
She's a woman of many words this fine evening.
Sometimes you get off easy, and I'm kind of quiet.
I feel blessed.
You should.
This evening.
You should.
So
you should, that the introvert next to you is being quiet.
Yeah. We all benefit from that, I suppose. Jay Oliver, thank you so much for being a member.
Wow,
it's been a year. It seems like it was just yesterday. Missed you. I wish you would have been to the last Aqua Show. Hopefully we'll see you
the same
next time. Hey, Fish Family, as always, I hope everyone is doing well and staying healthy. I sure did miss you guys at Aquashella. Yeah, it would have been great having you there. Jay Oliver is one of the hard workers, for sure, who helps keep the booth up and running. He's got that servant sort of heart where just when you need stuff, he's just there. And a lot of times he just does things because he just knows that things need to be done. And it's really awesome having people like him around and his family that just help make things better. So pretty cool. One of the things, we're going to be talking about snails here in about 2 minutes. But as we finish up the whole snail conversation, if you do have questions, put the @Primetime Aquatics in front of your question. That will help us get to your question, help us see it a little bit easier. Lynn says, at Primetime Aquatics, was sad to see Greenwater is moving locations. Tinley Park is about another hour. Actually, it's not. That Tinley, I shouldn't say that. Is it? I don't know. It's not.
No,
Lynn, it's just a little bit further east. It's actually where the old location was. So instead of coming up, I would say, aren't you?
Well,
you're
for
probably
Lynn,
coming up 355s. You just have to shoot over probably a little bit more. Man, maybe it
no,
is.
Lynn's,
it can't be an hour.
It's more east because she's like Rockford area.
Yeah. No.
Right?
Lynn is south.
Or
Peoria area.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Come on, know our people. But it's just a straight shot up 294, and it's right off the highway. So the location for Greenwater, not GCCA, but Greenwater in November is changing. And that might not be, I don't know if that's going to be a permanent change because they're just remodeling the place that we're currently in. And I thought that the buzz was when that was done, provided that they don't jack up the prices too high, we might be headed right back to where we are. So hopefully that's the case. Brian P. says, and then he's got arrows, fingers pointing everywhere.
Cool.
That's nice use of finger pointing emojis. So thank you for that. Okay, snails, can we just get into it? Can we just get into this right now? Like I said, we've been getting a lot more questions lately about snails. I don't know if it's because maybe more people are getting into planted tanks, and sometimes when you bring plants in, snail eggs hitch a ride with the plants, and next thing you know, a month later, it's like, at first it's kind of like, oh, what are those little dots? Oh, they're snails. And for some people who don't know anything about them, like, oh, that's kind of cool. For some people who do know a little bit about them, they get these cold, sweaty shivers because they're not sure if it's going to destroy their plants and their tanks. And so I just wanted to kind of hit some of the basics when it comes to snails. And some of you, I'm sure, have heard this. Maybe some of you haven't. But I think the first thing is, if you want more information about snails, check out the description. So there's a very short video. It's about 8 minutes long. It's an older video, but it's basically a video dedicated to how to get rid of snails. So if you stumble upon this live stream on a replay because you want to get rid of your snails, check out the video in the description. That will be much more helpful and probably to the point. I think for the most part, we've already identified there's more or less 2 types of snails, right? There's the snails that we purposely buy, mystery snails, nearite snails, maybe rabbit snails, and then assassin snails. And then there are those that come by mistake or outer space. Those are your pond snails, your ram's horn, the Malaysian trumpet snails. These ones, I would say, people find to be a little bit less desirable because they're more or less brownish, tannish white, and they don't have pretty colors, and they can sometimes populate your tank in overwhelming numbers. So this discussion is more or less centered around what do we do about snails that just appear, because I don't think anybody's buying mystery snails and then freaking out because they're mystery snails in their tank the next day. Like, I bought 3 mystery snails. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? They're still there. Well, what did you buy them for if you didn't want them? So this, where our focus is going to be more on the pest type snails. What would you say the number one thing, if you were going to control snails in a tank, what's the number one thing that you would do?
Add some pea puffers. Or I would rent out my my baddest.
So you're gonna throw fish in, and you're gonna take care of it. Now, what if your pea puffers are too
Full?
small?
They are. What would I do? Well, you could use a snail trap.
Okay, so you're gonna
manual,
go.
though.
You're gonna go snail trap. I would like to suggest that the number one thing that I would do if I saw snails and maybe I was a little scared, control feeding.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yes. You just knew I was going to say that. Snail populations generally grow to the size of the food that they are able to consume. So if you wind up with a snail explosion, as some people do, like I had no snails, 2 months later, I can't even see through the glass of my fish tank, what I would probably say is, and Rocky and Miles, I got it, feed less. Yeah, feed less, because what that means is there's some excess food probably falling to the substrate, and the snails are forming big snail blobs over that. They're eating, and the more they eat, the more food they have, the more likely they are to reproduce and produce little babies. So the number one thing that you can do to control, not eliminate, but control snail populations is make sure you're aware of the amount of food that is getting to the substrate. If you can control that, you can control snail populations. For us in the fish room, I do not make an effort to eliminate snails. It's a lost cause, and I just don't even feel the need to. What's interesting is if you look around our fish room now compared to the way it was 3 or 4 years ago, I don't know. Do we have any tanks downstairs, because you know better than I would, where we have like pond snails?
Yeah.
We have tanks with pond snails. Not ram's horn, but pond snails. I don't know of a single tank where we have pond snails. I know of a very few tanks where there may be some ram's horn snails, but not a single tank where ram's horn snails have even remotely come close to growing out of control.
No, not really out of control.
Like when you go looking for them, you have to look for them to give them to fish, right?
Well, sometimes, yeah.
So, and you would see that if you go through all of our fish room tour videos that we did back in June or so. I think I did a 5-part tour. Not a lot of pest snails. I really can't think of a tank that I have that has pest snails in there. Ram's horn snails are, for the most part, very, very limited. Now, we do have trumpet snails in some of our tanks, and in some of our tanks, there's quite a few. And the reason for that is the tanks where we have the most are mostly tanks where we are dealing with shrimp, where we're feeding shrimp or we're feeding plecos, and so the food is naturally falling to the bottom. So those tanks where you only have fish or invertebrates where they're going to be interacting with the substrate, that's probably going to be a little bit harder to control than if you have just a regular community tank, because the guppies, the endlers, the mollies, and all those fish, they're constantly picking. So they can easily outcompete snails for food. So if you've got that community tank, it's going to be a little bit easier for you. So thing number one, absolutely control the amount of food that's going in the tank, making sure that there's not a lot of food at the bottom for the snails to eat. That in and of itself, if you do that consistently for 2, 3, 4 weeks, you're going to notice your snail populations are going away. All right, maybe not eliminated, but they're certainly going away. The other thing I would say too is don't stress about them. Don't freak out about snails. I know for some people, they've heard horror stories about how the snails are just going crazy and they destroy their tanks. You've seen how many planted tanks that we have. Now, generally speaking, we keep a lot of Anubias and Crypts and some sword plants, tons and tons of jungle val, corkscrew val, Java fern, lots and lots of Java moss, bacopa, buse. We've got a lot of plants that I would consider to be mostly beginner-ish, low-tech plants. with all of those plants, we don't have any tanks that got decimated because of snail populations. In fact, for mystery snails, I've said this a million times, but our 20-gallon mystery snail breeding tank was a tank that we would purposely put plants in that were covered in algae. They would clean it off, leave the plant in wonderful condition, pull it back out, put it back in a tank, and it was really great. So just be aware that it's the snails, yes, some of them can eat those finer leaved plants, but for the most part, they don't necessarily decimate plants. The other thing, there are some good things about it. What would you say are some good things about snails?
Well, they do eat extra food.
Yes, that is true. So if a little bit of food falls to the bottom, that's good, especially if it's mystery snails or nearite snails. That's kind of nice. What else?
And, well, if you've got critters that like to eat them, then there you go.
That's also true. So if you do have pea puffers, like for us, and we'll get more into this in a little bit, but we have fish that really like to have snails as a snack. So it's always kind of nice actually having some snails around the fish room and then just kind of take a handful, chuck them in there, and let the fish have a little wonderful snack. The other thing to consider too is they eat algae. A lot of people freak out about Malaysian trumpet snails, and I know you do not like them.
I don't like them.
I actually prefer those over the ram's horn, over the pest snails, the standard pond snails. And the reason for that is the Malaysian trumpet snails, when the lights are out, they come out. You'll see them everywhere. Sometimes you'd be surprised how many Malaysian trumpet snails can be in a tank. They're all over the glass. They're all over your plants. They're eating stuff. And then if you turn the lights on in the tank, give it usually about 15 minutes, they're gone. I like that. They often, now it's a little bit harder for them to do if you've got gravel, but if you've got sand, they like to burrow in the sand. They don't like to be in light. All right, so they're photosensitive, and so they're going to kind of drift back into the substrate, and you won't really see them nearly as much. Like I said, if you've got large gravel, sometimes they can't burrow as easily, but they're a little bit easier to deal with. I'm looking here. Bayu said, "Yeah, I hate trumpet snails, hard to get rid of." That is the downside of all the snails that we talk about. The Malaysian trumpet snails, to me, are by far the most resilient. I mean, I've told stories before. I've had Malaysian trumpet snails that wound up in substrate that was moist in the garage through the winter, probably in the sand substrate for who knows how long. Use that sand substrate and they're still alive. And they've just been stuck in basically sand, in some cases in freezing cold weather, and they survived. So yeah, those things, once they're established, they are very difficult to get rid of.
So will they actually aerate the sand?
That is the other, yes, the Malaysian trumpet snails, some people like them because they do stir the substrate. Right, and it's especially nice for sand substrates because they burrow. Same thing, assassin snails will do that too. Assassin snails are a little bit different because they're not really algae eating the way that a lot of the other snails are. In fact, the assassin snails are a way to get rid of other types of snails. So if you're looking to get rid of them, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but yeah, the assassin snails are definitely a solution to that problem sometimes. Now, why don't you like them? Tell me a story. What's your number one? I don't like them because.
The trumpet snails?
Any pest snail.
Those specifically, I do not like them because there are so many of them. They make the tank look horribly messy, and then you may be like looking, you're having lots of fun, like, oh, let me look at my fish, and then like all of a sudden the substrate starts moving and you're like, oh, that's right, those things are in there. And you know what, I disagree. They're always out. I can always see them. It's not like the lights go on and then boop, they're gone. I can always find them because they're just there. Ugh. And you know what, they don't even match the substrate. A lot of my tanks are. They're not, it's not gravel. It's not trumpet snail colored gravel. It's white sand or it's black sand, and neither of them me no likey. There.
I think somebody is a tank is half full or tank is half empty sort of person. I'm more of a tank is half full of snails.
You can like them.
You're more of like a tank is half empty full of snails, and I just think that your attitude is all wrong about snails.
But, well, it's just the trumpet snails, but assassin snails I think are kind of cool. Now they don't multiply like cray-cray, and they're kind of pretty.
They're pretty. Yeah, they do have a nice little pattern, and they can take care of said problem number one, like we talked about.
That's right.
Yeah, I think for the most part, people with the pest snails, obviously, if you're not liking them, it's because they're overtaking a tank, they're overrunning it, they make it look ugly. For some of you, maybe they are eating some plants, especially if you've got some plants that are not hardier types, like I've already mentioned. So I get that. If you are wanting to get rid of them, like I said, the number one thing is control the amount of food you're putting, the amount of food that falls to the bottom, because that's where the snails are going. The snail, I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you ever feed a tank, even if you feed like a couple of pellets and drop them in there, snails have an outstanding radar for food. I mean, they're just like, shoo, the minute that stuff hits the water, they're on it. So you really, that's the number one thing, control it. If you're looking to get rid of a bunch of snails, but you don't have a snail trap or something like that, chuck a piece of cucumber. We have the Repashy gel-based food, that stuff. You put that in there, wait about 15 minutes, and they will form a mound of snails, and you can just scoop them out with the food and then put the food back in, keep scooping. Is it going to eliminate your snails? 100% no, but it will reduce the amount of snails in the tank. These are all things you do to help control the populations so that they're not overrunning your tank. You're controlling the amount of food that goes in. If you've already got a lot and you put some type of a sinking vegetable like a cucumber on a skewer or something like that, Repashy gel-based food that falls to the bottom, wait a while and just keep doing that. And after about a week or two, you'll get rid of a lot of your snails. You've got a snail trap that you've done. Did you do a video on a snail trap at one point?
I did. Yeah. It's not like a you drop it in the tank and in a little bit they're all gone. It's a little bit manual, but it does help out, especially in those nano tanks.
Yeah, the best one I ever had was the snail trap review that I did of the Syrah snail trap, and they don't make it anymore.
Yeah.
People thought I'd like somehow rigged that thing to, I don't know, like show that it was trapping snails. It wasn't, but it was insane. The whole thing was packed full of snails, and it was a little tedious to put together, the Syrah snail traps, but they don't make them anymore. It was like the number one best snail trap ever on the face of the earth.
Bummer.
Mark K. Pets, appreciate you. Thanks for becoming a prime timer, primate, prime time partner. Glad you're here hanging with us. We got one take Carper. Thank you so much. Appreciate the little super chat. Little sticker guy. Oh, that's your little avatar.
Cool.
Very nice. Thank you.
Sometimes it's really hard to see like what the little shape and sticker
I know.
is.
I was like, wait, is that sticker?
Mr. Old Man
yeah,
Eyeballs.
I got no eyes. Bob, thank you so much for the super chat. What is your vacation or out-of-town strategy for failed air pumps, failed heaters underheating, and failed heater thermostats overheating? Make a note of that question. I want to get to that as soon as we finish our snail conversation, because I do have a plan for all of those things.
Okay.
Okay. So we're getting rid of the snails manually, more or less, using food as bait. We talked about assassin snails. That can certainly help, but do not expect to throw 2 or 3 assassin snails in a 40 breeder that is just packed full of pest snails and expect them to all be gone in a week. That's not going to happen. In fact, you probably won't notice much of a dent. If I had a snail infestation, like let's say in a 20 gallon, and I was going to use assassin snails to deal with that, I'd probably throw in 8 or 10 assassin snails and then still have a lot of patience. If you're doing the other things on top of that, again, it's just one little piece to the puzzle to your getting rid of snails toolbox that you can use. Of course, you've got the fish. You mentioned one of the good ones. What is that?
Pea puffer.
Pea puffers. There's lots of different types of fish, different size fish that will eat snails. Your pea puffers. You mentioned the
Batis asamensis.
Yeah, that bad boy loved him some snails.
Thus his name is Killer.
Yep. We had some, what was that other fish that was in your, I want to say Nanakart wasn't, it was the fish that we had to remove because it was competing with the pea puffers. Remember the little West African cichlid with the pink? What was the name of that fish?
That's right. What? They're really pretty, but yeah.
No, I can't remember. But anyway,
gosh, what were they called?
There are some small cichlids that will eat small cichlids that will eat snails. Most African cichlids will take care of snails, especially your mbuna, your peacocks. I mean, we have tanks in our fish room that are snail free, and every African cichlid tank that we have at this point, I think, is mostly snail free. And that's because African cichlids generally will snack on them. The fish I used to feed purposely snails because I really loved it were my tinfoil barbs, my ballast sharks, and silver dollars. They would go crazy. I'd throw a big handful of ram's horn snails or pest snails in there. If you had a really large tank, obviously those would work just fine. So I'm basically using a combination of all of those things to take care of snails, your loaches, clown loaches, dwarf chain loaches if you've got smaller tanks, but also just be aware that those dwarf chain loaches can sometimes be a little bit more assertive than other types of loaches. So yeah, there's a million things you can do. When you combine all those together, it will often work just fine. I stay away from chemicals. A lot of people ask about, hey, do you ever use like any copper-based chemicals to kill the snails? My concern there is if you're using a copper-based chemical, yeah, they're going to kill the snails, but you're going to have a lot bigger issue, because if you're using chemicals to kill snails and you've got a fair amount of them, like your tank has been overrun, you're going to wind up with some kind of water quality issues, because you're going to have a bunch of dead snails. And when snails die, that's nasty. Like some of you have had like mystery snails and stuff that have died, and you pick up the shell and the body just kind of falls out and it's all cloudy around there. You don't want to kill massive numbers of snails at the same time, because it creates quite a messy, smelly tank, and B, the snails themselves stink when they die. So just be really careful of that. Chemicals will also, especially if you're using copper, that can be very harmful to your plants, harmful to other invertebrates like shrimp, and it will do it'll put a whooping on your beneficial bacteria too. So that could be a problem. Anything more you want to add? No?
No.
You're all good?
I think
Okay.
so.
So should we do the giveaway now?
Should we?
I think we should. We're on a roll. Let's
All
do
right.
the giveaway here. First, thank you, Marley, for being a member the last 2 months. Wow, it's been 2 months for you already. It feels like it's been a week. Happy Water Change Wednesday. Love from Canada. Thank you so much.
Canada.
Yeah, it's going to be a little cooler up there than it is even by us here pretty darn soon. We've got like one more weekend, I think, of 75-ish degree days. That's coming up Friday, Saturday, Sunday with no rain. I'm going to be enjoying those days.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what we got. Are you ready? One winner is going to get all three of these things. So I'm going to explain what they are, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about how it is you can get these three things. So these are all Fritz Aquatics products. That kind of rhymed. Fritz Aquatics products. This first one is Fritz Zyme Monster 360. And the purpose of this product is basically to add heterotrophic bacteria to your aquarium that helps break down some of the detritus and fish waste in your tank and making tank maintenance a little bit less cumbersome. This is especially useful if you've got fish tanks with larger fish that produced a fair amount of waste. So this stuff here is pretty cool. So for those of you who don't know, Fritz Aquatics is a channel sponsor. They supply us with a lot of stuff to give to you, which we appreciate quite a bit. They do all the high-end chemicals, water conditioners, and medications. If you look through fritzaquatics.com, you'll see all the meds that they have. Really, really good stuff. We have all their meds in our fish room because they are absolutely critical for our fish room. So Monster 360, kind of a cool thing to try. See if it works well for your fish tank. The next thing, this is a must-have, in my opinion. You should always have this in your fish room.
Absolutely.
Fritz Complete. So this is basically a water conditioner that is going to neutralize your chloramines and your chlorine and ammonia and even nitrate and nitrite. So this stuff is, again, it's basically a water conditioner. You do your water changes, and Fritz Complete is a thing to have. This little bottle here treats 2,400 gallons. So if you don't have a lot of tanks, you might have this for a long time. This is some great stuff. And the last one is somewhat sort of unrelated. I mean, it's in a bottle, so I guess that's
nice.
kind of similar.
That's cool. I like it.
It's the Fritz glass and acrylic cleaner. So leaves a little bit less streaks on your glass. It makes it a little bit easier to clean, so it doesn't go in the water. This is for cleaning the outside of your tank, so don't spray it in the water because that would be bad. So these are the three things that a single winner is going to win. That single winner has to be in the 48 states of the United States, because we still don't ship outside of the U.S. because we just don't right now. So that's the story. Now, in order to win this stuff, what you have to do is you have to pick a number between 20 and 40, and the first person that picks the number that Joanna has, you can start right now. The first person that picks that correct number is going to win the stuff
and
between
it has to
20 and 40.
But it has to be live chat.
Yeah, and make sure, well, that's fine. We're in live chat. That's what matters.
Oh, okay.
Let's see here. Oh, my
Hold
thing's
on.
going to freeze up
Hold
on
on.
me. Oh, boy.
Oh my gosh.
Hold on.
I have
get it?
go.
Stop. We can stop.
Really?
We
okay.
got it.
Hold on.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones that came through. So you can now stop typing numbers in because
What'd you get?
we have identified a winner. right here. And so again, a lot of people sometimes get confused because there's two ways you can have your chat on. It's in live chat or top chat. Top chat just gives you the chats that YouTube thinks you might want to see. Live chat is the order in which they appear. In our live chat situation here, go ahead and show the number. The number is 23, in honor of Michael Jordan and Ryan Sandberg, apparently. Steel Waves, you were the first person to guess the number 23 on the thingy, so you are the winner. Now, what you have to do with that information is you're going to email us. Here's the email address. Are you ready? It is primetime giveaway.
Singular.
Primetime giveaway, all one word, at yahoo.com. Send us your actual name along with your mailing address, and we'll get that stuff out to you usually within 3, 4, 5 days, whenever Joanna can get to the post office.
UPS.
UPS, sorry, whatever. UPS, post office, it's all the same thing. They make packages go from one location to another. So there you have it. So Steel Waves, congratulations. Thanks for playing. Don't worry. If you didn't win, my promise to you is we've got a whole bunch of boxes right outside of you over here with more stuff. Thanks to Fritz Aquatics and Flip Aquatics. They are the only two channel sponsors we have. By the way, if you're looking for the stuff, check out flipaquatics.com. They got cool stuff, that stuff too. So thanks for playing. Fish Fan 20 Gallon Long is in the house. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the super chat. Daryl says hello. What's up?
Hey, Daryl.
My Siamese algae eaters like to eat snails and blackbeard algae. I have 1 male cherry barb and 6 females. The male chases everyone. Is this normal? With only one? I don't know. Our males never got to be to a point where they were chasing a lot of fish around. So maybe your male cherry barbs just got a little attitude problem. If it's a larger tank, you could consider adding more of the cherry barbs. You know, I'm thinking larger, meaning at least 20 long or longer or larger. You could try adding more. Siamese algae eaters are really cool. I've got a couple of them. I don't talk about them much, mostly because they're stuck in a heavily planted tank that I very rarely ever see them. So, but I really like those fish. They're really cool. Ted Steele, I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. All right, let's see if we can go. Now this thing's going to skip because all the numbers were coming through, and my chat is all jacked up and stuck. And then someday it's going to unstick, and then I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, it just jumped the whole thing. Mine is like really stuck. Is yours?
No, mine's going, but I'm trying to get past the numbers.
Hold on. Are we?
We go.
Oh, wait, there we go.
There we go.
Hold on, because yeah, my whole thing was stuck. I think my internet was stuck. It was so stuck. Let's see here. I just want to make sure. Okay. Oh my gosh. What's going on with this thing?
Here's a real quick one.
Okay.
From Tom, is pool sand okay as a substrate for Geophagus to shift through?
Is pool filter sand okay for Geophagus? Yeah, I think for the most part. The pool filter sand that we have, I've kept Geophagus on it before. Don't recall ever having an issue.
What about the black diamond blasting sand? That's a little bit rougher.
Yeah, but some people say it is, and I've had plenty of people from the GCCA who that's all they use, and they've got all kinds of Geophagus and African cichlids who go through sand, and I mean they've been doing it for many years and never had a problem. So me not having used it, I want to be really careful with what I say, because yeah, sometimes people say, oh, it's sharp, and then other times it's like, oh no, it's fine. And yeah, it can be fine. Fish Fan 20 Gallon Long, game over. Thank you very much for the super chat. Game over. Appreciate the notification there. Sean, appreciate the super chat. Hi, J&J. One of those is you. Resetting up my 55 gallon for some koi angels, Odessa barbs, cherry barbs, and some nearite snails. This will be tank number 10. LOL. How many of each? That's cool, man. So 55 gallons, you got some space there. The angelfish. I would probably limit my number of angelfish long term to 2, because you're going to have 3 potential combinations, obviously, a male and a female, 2 males or 2 females. Once you get more than that, when they get full size, sometimes a 4-foot tank will be okay housing multiple angels, but if you ever get a pair and they start laying eggs somewhere and they start getting a little territorial, especially towards the other angels, Sometimes the 4-foot tank is enough for them to figure it out. Sometimes not as much. So if you just want to have a guaranteed, no issues, no stress, 1 is a great number. As you know, just get a nice big honking koi angel, because they do get big. Not just koi angels, but angelfish. I mean, easily the body itself could be the palm, the size of the palm of your hand. Odessa barbs, I would probably throw in at least 10. Cherry barbs, you could do 15 or 20 at least. Nearite snails, if that's going to be your primary algae eating sort of organism, 8 to 10 of those. The only downside to nearite snails, I love their color, I love their size, I love their tenacity for eating algae. The only thing that you're going to probably experience that you may not like is the nearite snails will often leave the little white eggs all over your decorations and glass. That's a little bit hard to remove off of decorations, glass. Yes, it can be scraped off with an algae scraper, but some people find that a bit annoying, and that's why they kind of venture off into the land of mystery snails. So you do have to be a little bit careful with angels and snails. Some angels leave them alone. Some angelfish are like, hey man, let me go ahead and see if I can pick at this thing and see what it tastes like. But yeah, what you got?
All right, this one's from our beloved Link Master Supreme Forever.
So,
ready?
yes.
All right. Hey, by the way, what is the safest method to change from one all-around non-medicinal water conditioner to another? I want to switch from API stress coat to Fritz.
Just switch. There's no, I mean, I can't tell you how many times in our fish room we will switch from one, the Fritz Complete to the ACCR, and it's just whatever I have right in front of me is what I'm using. So there's the water conditioners, for the most part, they do their job. They neutralize the chloramines, the chlorine, the ammonia, and then they basically become non-existent after a while in terms of what's in the tank. I mean, they kind of need to be, because if they were going to be a chemical that's going to stay in your water for long periods of time, it would bioaccumulate and your fish would wind up having a problem. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. Switch if you want to switch and not worry about it.
What is API stress coat? Is it just a conditioner?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Blunt, thank you so much for becoming a Primetime or Primetime partner. I'm glad you're here. Daryl Dimer's in the house. What's up, man? Appreciate you being here. Thanks for the super chat. Whip says, next time I think I should win.
We can never pick 47, Whip.
Yeah.
We can't
Watch,
do
one
it
time
now.
we're going to forget, and it's going to be 47.
Oh, can you imagine?
Yep. I think that's Whip's
and
favorite
then
number.
that would be the one time that he would switch it up and pick like 46.
Hey, Whip, did I hear that you also got the Aquashella Galloping Goopers too? You and your wife? I thought I heard somewhere that you guys were feeling a little under the weather last week as well.
Bummer.
I hope that's not the case, but people said things. Yep. All right, what else we got going on here? Ray Cooper says, does aeration, a heavy aeration, change or detoxify pH or ammonia? It doesn't really do much with the ammonia because it's not really all that impacted by aeration. It could potentially, would it have an impact on pH? If your tank has been stable, probably not. All right, so aeration, the only thing it's really doing is, like the bubbles from a sponge filter or an air stone, the average air stone, they're creating water current. They're creating water movement. It's creating surface agitation, which helps increase gas exchange. The bubbles themselves really aren't, the typical bubbles really aren't going to be releasing oxygen into the water because they form, they stay as a bubble holding all of that oxygen, and then when they get to the surface, that's when they pop. And then they just release the oxygen outside the tank back into the atmosphere. So the advantage that you're getting from those often are just the surface agitation for better gas exchange at the surface, not so much releasing air into the tank from the bubbles themselves. The question that we had, I said, hey, make a note of that question because I want to answer it. What was that again? I didn't forget.
What is your vacation or out-of-town strategy for failed air pumps, failed heaters underheating, and failed heater thermostats overheating?
Okay, so my strategy is to have somebody here when we're gone. We've got multiple people here when we're gone. We generally don't really ever leave the fish room unattended for more than a day-ish or so. If we know we're going to be gone more than a day, pretty much there's always somebody here. There's always people here, and they're usually staying at the house. Not usually, they are staying at the house. So That kind of eliminates our issues in terms of if something goes wrong, because the people that are here are basically trained. Well, first of all, if it's the boys, they spend more time in the fish room than I do with all the maintenance they do. They would notice something just normally before I do. And at this point, they would just take care of the issue. I might not even know the issue happened until I got home, because they don't bother me with it. I mean, I remember when Eli thought the tank had cracked. He's in there. He didn't want to wake us up. So, he had the 125. He thought it had cracked in the middle. He shut down the hang-on back filter. He took the sponge filters. He took he set them. He took the sponge filters off, or laid them on their sides and weighed. No, that's what he did. He laid them on their sides, weighed them down, so that because the tank had drained so far, it had gone past the uplift tube of the sponge filter. So he had turned them on their sides, made sure that there was aeration going, made sure the sponge filters were still running, and cleaned up everything that, any water spills. And then the next morning, I wake up, I'm like, why? What is going on with this tank? And then he explained it. So we are blessed in the sense that we have that. If I didn't have that, what would my plan be? First of all, one of my biggest concerns would be obviously losing power, and then also water on the floor. And so there are lots of companies that sell water sensors that you can put on the basement floor, your fish room floor, living room floor, whatever, that would sense if water hits the floor. I think that's pretty important, because if a tank cracks, something leaks, a hang-on back filter overflows, and you're away, that is far more damaging than anything that can happen within the tank. Because you got hardwood floors, or you're on a second floor, and all of a sudden you got water dripping through a ceiling down to the floor beneath you, could be very catastrophic in terms of the cost. So that would be one thing I would consider, is having some type of a moisture sensor on the floors. In terms of the power going out, you can't really control the power going out. And so that's usually going to be, when it comes to aeration filtration, if there's a blip, what can you really do about that other than having people periodically come over? And I think that's one of the best things we could all do. A lot of people have family members, neighbors come over to feed the fish, but feeding the fish for me is part of that. But the number one thing I show people is, okay, let's take a look at what the tanks look like. And so for people who don't know a lot about fish, okay, see all these things, these are called sponge filters. You see how every single tank in our fish room has something that's moving water. If you ever walk by a tank and that tank has stagnant water, that could be a problem. Call me. Take a video, let's do a FaceTime, let's see what's going on. In terms of heaters, let's face it, even us as experienced fish keepers, we might not catch that for a while, right? If a heater is broken and it's not heating the fish tank, a lot of times, back when I used to heat tanks, the way that you would catch it is all of a sudden the fish are looking lethargic. They're not eating. You could just tell they're losing a little bit of color, and all of a sudden you put your hand in the tank, or you put your finger in the water, it's like, oh, it's cold, heater's down. So someone who's unexperienced, they would never catch that because they're not around fish. So it's just one of those things where without people, there's really not a lot you can do, right? I mean, heaters overheating, by the time somebody catches that, the fish are dead. I mean, if you're looking for a sensor or something like that, I don't have anything that I've ever used where I would put this in a tank that would sound an alarm or activate an app that would tell you if your tank has gotten too cold or too warm. Do those things exist? I'm sure they probably do. Have I ever used them? No, because I haven't found it necessary to do that. But that's how number one way to avoid that stuff is getting people that you trust that can pay attention to some details and notify you if something's going wrong, so you can kind of work through the issue together. Okay, so I hope that somewhat kind of helped. Andy, thank you so much for the super chat. Similis are enjoying the 150-gallon tank. Took some time to get used to the horde of guppies around them. I bet it did. Yeah, that's cool. So they're going to be they're going to love that, because they're coming out of a 20 lawn and now they're in your 150, just loving life. Good luck. I hope you have like 1,000 of them in a year. Well, it'll take longer than a year, but it would be so cool. It would be really cool. And you sit there and they're guppies, which is fine, especially in a 150. I mean, the Similis, for the most part, in a 150 are probably going to stay in the lower half of the tank. You might not see any more guppy fry, but still, that's cool. Squad, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being here. What you got over there?
Let's see. I did have, this is from Lee. Have you ever heard of a CO2 snafu? Think drop checker turned such a light yellow. It was almost clear, killing off beneficial bacteria. The ammonia is still converted, but not the nitrite.
From a CO2 regulator going bad?
Must be.
Yeah, I don't.
Thinking.
We don't do CO2, so it's not something I'm familiar with. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, I had that happen. Here's what I did. But I know CO2 regulators can go bad. I know they can pump a tank full of CO2 and cause some serious issues, especially, pH can definitely be impacted by that. If the CO2 is pumping too high in the tank, you can have fish that are basically starved for oxygen when that happens. So, but it's not a problem we better deal with because I'm too lazy to run CO2 in anywhere. Plus, we've got so many tanks. It's like, I don't even know where to begin with that. Brian says Inkbird temperature controllers will do that. Okay, so there's I know there's products out there. I just see the thing is we heat the room, so it would be because we heat the room and because of how our basement is situated, it really holds temperature well. So if that were to happen in the summer, it wouldn't be a concern at all because there is no situation in the summer where the room would get overheated. In the wintertime, I guess if our central heating unit went out, we've got a backup space heater, which I would just start cranking that. Between that and the dehumidifier, I'm confident that we could keep the room at 80 degrees at least. If for some reason the power went out and we lost our central heat, we've probably got, even in the middle of winter, I would say, even if the house temperature dropped, but we limited the amount of time we were opening the door to our fish room in the basement, I bet you we've got a couple of days before we've seriously got to worry about temperatures in those tanks getting cold enough where there could be an issue. Probably a couple days, maybe a day and a half. Hopefully I don't ever have to be like, oh, well, I was wrong. We had 6 hours and now they're all bad. RR, thank you so much for becoming a primate primetime partner. I love how every time I say, you notice this? I know, and I'm actually glad you do this. It's a comfort for me. Every time I say like a new name, you double check to make sure I'm actually reading it. And I'm sure it's because of things like the time when I thought someone had a fernfish and all the other times I've misread stuff.
Classic.
So I noticed you do it, and I also somewhat appreciate it. It warms my heart.
Thanks, but there is a chance that both of us are wrong. There's a high likelihood.
That is true. Pardon me. Whips World member for 2 months. 2 months. What? You had to start over 2 months because I had to start over. But to answer your question, yes, the missus and I both caught the goop. Oh, it stinks.
Did you?
I hope you're feeling better. 2 months, that's kind of, does that aggravate you? I wish there was a way I could go back and be like, all right, we got to fix this thing.
Right.
He had a big, long streak, and now got knocked out.
That's the ick. The ick got you there, Whip.
That's right. Yep. Boy.
You're feeling better.
Yep. Hip Hop says, think a pair of Apistogramma cockatoides would be okay in a highly planted 40-gallon Tetra community tank, 27 neon size, with Hillstream loaches and a couple of EDF. I'm having a hard time here. ADF. So I don't know what ADF is. Why should I know? I feel like I probably should. But with the other fish, yeah, it's fine. I just don't know what ADF means. Fill me in, man. Because I'm struggling here.
Oh, and James?
Oh, African dwarf frogs. Ooh.
Oh.
That might be a problem. Because African dwarf frogs are tiny. And I don't know if the cockatoides would be like, hey, man, let me go ahead and try to eat a leg or something. And now everybody's like, African dwarf frogs, you moron. I'm sorry. I just didn't know the slang. It's the frog slang. I got to get hip. Thanks for making me hip hop. Hip hop made me hip in the ADF slang.
Sure.
I love it.
James answered the CO2 question for everybody. The CO2 shouldn't mess with ammonia or nitrite, but will create a ton of carbonic acid. Yeah. By the time a drop checker changes, it is too late, as there is about a 2-hour delay.
Yeah. I probably should have been clear about that. Yeah, it's not going to have an impact on ammonia, but definitely pH for sure.
And then there was one that I wanted to get here. This is from Jason. Wonder what they will actually look like. Let's see, wait. Yeah, I think I got the first one here. There's 2. Wonder what they will actually look like if you put fish in them and let it run for a year. I think they would look very different. I don't think you can compare planted tank home with those temporary tanks. They did look awesome, but you can't achieve that in a real tank. Okay, so I think you're talking about the tanks at Aquashella, the high-end ones. I don't know. Some of them I'm sure are meant to look a specific way, but a lot of them, like, not that I'm a pro by any means, but any scape that I do with the intention that I would be able to maintain it, and those are the plants that I choose, so I don't use any ones that would require CO2. I don't run it. The tank that I did at the Owaza booth is right down there, doing great. But, you know, like anything else, any tank, it will look lived in. It won't look as pristine. There will be bits of algae. Plants will kind of move around a little bit, so it won't look exactly the same, but who would want it to, you know?
Yeah, and I would say that that's partially true, but some of the winners I know for a fact, like Melanie Holmes, that tank, if she takes that home, it will look like that in a year. It'll look like that in 2 years. If you were to see her actual personal tanks, they look every bit as nice as what was displayed there, and they stay that way. Same thing with Jen Williams. I would, if you were to look at Grant and Shelby's tanks, some of the stuff that they've aquascaped, that they've done on a smaller scale. I haven't been there since they've brought home the larger ones, but I know for a fact, just going through their home and being there, they're like, oh yeah, this is the tank that we won with this little show or this show here. They look every bit as good, I'm sure, as what they did when they first set them up. So in some cases, yeah, in some cases, those tanks are more problematic. The other example I would give you is Aquarium Design Group. The guy who, the people who run that, their tanks are immaculate. I mean, they are world-class aquascapers. In fact, Andrew was there. I think was he judging the aquascaping contest, one of them? And you walk in there. Now, granted, it's not a home, it's a business, but still, these are people who are taking care of them. You walk in there, you can see the video that I did. They're immaculate, and they stay that way. They have to. And there's fish in there and everything swimming around. So it can be maintained. It's not easy. You're absolutely right in the sense that if you want a heavily aquascaped tank, these underwater forests that you see, they take considerable amounts of maintenance. I would say MD Tanks would be another one. George Farmer, where you can see his tanks more often. Yeah, every once in a while you're going to say, yeah, we really let this one go, because it is hard to keep all that stuff up, but it can be done.
Or there's issues that pop up. They can get algae too.
Now, do I want to try and maintain something like that? No. Because it would break my heart. Because even let's just say for argument's sake that your boy Jason decides to aquascape a tank. I've never said that before. Your boy Jason wants to aquascape a tank, right?
Oh, you don't have to say it twice.
I said it twice. I'm going to have a new shirt. It says Primetime Aquatics, your boy Jason, right there.
No.
Decided to, and on the back,
I ordered the shirts. I'm not ordering that shirt. Don't worry.
I'm going to do it on my own.
Okay.
I'll be part of the group. If I was able to aquascape a tank and make it look all nice, I don't know if I could handle, like, emotionally watching that tank devolve into what I know it would devolve into, because I simply cannot fathom spending time maintaining a tank at that level. So I feel you. I understand what you're saying. Tracy says, I love you guys. This is a very sad comment that I'm going to read to everybody. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We love you guys. We were too shy to talk to you guys at Aquashella, but did get a shirt. I love your new shirt. I would have gotten that one for me if I had seen it there. Well, A, thank you for stopping by and getting a shirt, and B, gosh darn it, you don't even just be like, hi, I'm shy. I'm like, cool.
Step right up.
But I'm glad you were there. But hey, next time, just be like,
yeah, say hi.
You just give me the nod, like, what's up? I'm shy. What's that movie? This is our son, young son. He's shy.
That's right.
Give him the book.
This book will help.
Yeah.
My child is shy.
Yeah. Just give us that book. Kicking
Classic.
and Screaming. Yep. Kicking and Screaming.
Classic.
That was the movie. Lee W. says, my rainbows never recovered. Died over a week. My angels and platies seem to be okay so far. Well, that's not good news. I don't like that. Hold on. Now my chat is all stuck.
Gabriel Glass Boxes says, rock pile people rule.
Thank you very much. Yep. And us rock pile people, when we make a pile of rocks, if it starts to look a little disheveled, sometimes it looks even better that way. It looks natural. That's what I am. I'm a natural aquascaper of the Great Lakes, where you just see piles of stuff that just kind of are strewn and strewn everywhere.
Sure.
Strewn and strewn.
Oh, that too.
Yeah, and it just looks natural.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. James, Nature Aquatics. We maintain those tanks all the time. They do change as plants grow in and stuff, but we predict that in the setup. It just takes a lot of time. Yep, it does.
Yeah, it's just like a garden.
Yeah.
When you set up a garden
Brookley's
outside.
here too. Brookley's one of the peeps that did one of those incredible tanks.
Yeah.
You should see all of my aquascapes at my house. All 13 tanks except for my hospital tank is aquascaped. I competed in the football competition, so I am very passionate about aquascaping, I guess. Yes, you are. That tank that Brookley did, I believe that was the one that had the white clouds. It was a very nice tank, and you're going to see more of that tank because there are some. I want to talk a little bit more about white clouds, and I'm going to be using that tank as basically the B-roll for it. I spent a lot of time doing that. Rachel says, "Sup, I'm shy." That's exactly how the greeting should go. I love that. And she says, "Make that shirt." So I'm going to do that.
Really?
I'm going to do it. That's right.
It's
your boy Jason.
No.
Yeah, it'll be like my 12-year-old shirt. It'll be nothing but like us crazy people and a bunch of 12-year-olds.
I'd be like, yes, I'd like to order one shirt, please.
Hey, no, because we got to get them to the people.
2 shirts, please.
Brooklyn says, rummy nose tetras. I hope I said rummy nose tetras because I'm like rummy nose rasboras in my brain. But yeah, rummy nose tetras. Pretty cool. Tracy says, I live by Lake Superior. Love the rocks. See, I'm a Lake Michigan guy, so I understand. I love the rocks and the stench of Lake Michigan. There's nothing better on a hot August day than driving by Lake Michigan. Like, smells like a combination of dead fish, fecal matter, and I don't know what. Let's go swimming. Whips World, thank you for the super chat once again. That's my story too. I'm too shy to say hi. Yes.
Sure
yes,
you are,
yes,
Whip.
You are.
You bet.
I noticed that.
You blend right into a crowd too.
That's right. Yep. I definitely noticed that. You can work on it. We'll get you into a I'm too shy club. Yep. Let's see here. Kat says, anyone can help me with my rabbit snail. Well, I haven't kept them, but I bet you there's a bunch of people here that could help you with your rabbit snail if you have a question. That's my guess. Matthew Fry. Matt says, I'm just going to do paintings of aquascapes so I never get discouraged.
There you go.
And I'll never change.
Always looks perfect.
That's right. I can't paint either, so I got a problem.
You can doodle. You make cute little doodles. Like stick people and stuff.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah. It's not quite appealing to many people, but it can be done.
Oh, it's cute.
BW says, someone mentioned scaping a hospital tank. Is that something you can do? The standard meds won't hurt the plants. I would never scape a hospital tank. Hospital tanks are strictly there to make sure, and there's a number of reasons why I would not scape a hospital tank. I keep it minimal. I do put substrate in all my quarantine tanks. I do that, one, because I don't like the look of a bare bottom tank. 2, there's more surface area there for beneficial bacteria. 3, I think for the most part, most fish appreciate that. 4, when it comes to hospital tanks, I will put only what I need to put in there to make the fish feel safe. So if I've got a bunch of loaches in a tank, will I throw some rocks and wood in there and some places for them to hide? Yes, I will do that. Will I throw a cave in there if I think that the fish might like that? Yes, but we've got to be really careful with what we put in a hospital tank too, because the whole point of the hospital tank is to be able to observe the fish and making sure that they're healthy. So if they get sick, one of the first things that fish like to do is hide. Well, that defeats the purpose of the hospital tank, because now you've got the sick fish that are hiding. You're not seeing it. Maybe they got ick, maybe they got a bacterial infection or internal parasite, and they're off in a corner somewhere, and then they wind up dying in your hospital tank. I'm like, what the heck happened? I put them in there, and I wasn't able to observe them. So with the hospital tanks, I'm trying to keep it minimal. And yes, when it comes to plants and even invertebrates, I want to keep that minimal as well, because I want to be able to have every med at my disposal. So I don't want to have to worry about, oh, you know what, this is an ick infestation that is really tough, and it's African cichlids. So I'm just going to go straight to the copper safe, because I know African cichlids are tough. They can take it, but this ick outbreak is pretty aggressive as well. So I'm cranking up the temperatures. I'm dropping in the copper safe, and I'm adding the salt, and that will all destroy plants, and that will ruin your water quality, which makes it an even bigger issue. So fake plants, yeah, Scruffy says, I keep fake plants in the hospital tank. Yep, sure, but not live plants. I keep rocks and wood to a minimum, because eventually, too, keep in mind, after that 4 weeks of quarantine, you want to be able to get them out of the tank easily. and you don't want to be ripping stuff up to do that. Do you have something you'd like to add?
I do.
Okay.
But this is from Doxy Diane. I have a well-planted and well-stocked 29-gallon community tank. Should I or should I not try to gravel vac some areas that I can?
Well-planted, well-established.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got plants that are not, don't have extensive roots, we do sometimes, around, we'll go to areas where there's not a lot of, away from a sword plant or away from a crip or away from jungle bell. We'll just kind of go there. We don't necessarily go all the way down to the glass in those areas, but it can be helpful because if that detritus is building up, it can mess with water quality a little bit. All of a sudden you might start getting detritus worms in there. Every time a fish comes by and stirs up the substrate a little bit, now you got stuff floating everywhere. So yeah, it's something that we will do. All right, let me see here.
James, do you want to answer, Squad Captain? CO2 tablets, gimmick or useful?
Gimmick.
Gimmick?
Yeah.
Really?
CO2 is a gas. CO2 is CO2 when you are using a CO2 diffuser and regulator, and the CO2 stuff like, CO2 in a bottle, that basically is an algicide. That is what that product is really for. So I don't remember the brand. Was that Excel or something like that? CO2 in a bottle. It's not CO2. It is not providing CO2 to your plants in any meaningful way, but it is something that is pretty harmful for fish in high enough concentrations. It's either formalin is one of the, I think it was formalin. Don't quote me on that because it's been a long time since I've looked at that bottle. That is definitely harmful to fish. This stuff doesn't really do much for plants. In fact, it will melt some plants down. Certainly your mosses will be abused by that stuff. But glutaraldehyde, thank you so much, Zen. And formaldehyde too. So it's an algicide. So if you got, and it's not necessarily a great thing to do because there are much less impactful, harmful ways to deal with algae than using one of those products. So I stay away from them. That's just me. What more do you have to say, my lady?
That was it, right at that there.
Okay. Chris says, fish are so weird. Yes, they are. I'm witnessing a roseline shark, pretty muted in color, be chased and chasing the other roselines. Just got 8 in a 60-gallon breeder. I don't know what's considered normal if anyone can help. If you just got them, they're figuring things out. Roseline sharks, you did the right thing. I like the number 8 in a 60 breeder, so I think you did all the right things. So breathe easy. You're doing fine. I would say just let them kind of figure things out, especially if they're newer, and they probably will. I've kept roseline sharks many times. I've kept them in 75, 125s, and they've always seemed to figure it out after a while. So, yeah.
Everybody say goodnight to Wendy. She got to get up soon.
Oh, my gosh.
Night, Wendy.
Yep. James says same for all labeled liquid CO2. Yeah, liquid CO2 is, Marley says, Chem Flourish Excel. I think that's what it's called. Like I said, I haven't used it in a long time. It's not putting CO2 into your water. It's just not.
Just dump in some bubbly.
No, don't do that either.
Perrier.
If you want CO2, trust me. First of all, there's DIY CO2 things you can use. Yeast. There's chemical reactions that you can do. You could do it that way, or just get the CO2 container that will last you a very long time, and then you can go and get it filled, and you don't have to worry about all the other stuff, and it will work much, much better. I promise. All right, let me see here. I saw something I wanted. That's Aquatics. Hey, I made it. Funny thought. Normal people eat noodles with chopsticks. Aquascapers eat it with aquascaping tweezers. Now, wouldn't that be something? Eating your noodles with aquascaping tweezers? I suppose, as long as they haven't been used, because then you've got like all the detritus and stuff on your tweezers, and you're eating the noodles like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It could be pretty bad. It could be a bad next day.
What?
It could be a bad next day. All right, let me see. I'm going through the thing. This thing is skipping on me again, everybody. James says you can actually add carbonated water. It doesn't. Yeah, that's true. You can add carbonate. It doesn't work well, but it is how Amano created CO2 injection. Sure. Yeah.
Oh, wait. An old school fish keeping tip is to keep pennies in your tank.
Pennies.
What would that do?
It's got, well, and if they're old pennies, they'd have copper, but copper is not something you really want with your invertebrates and stuff like that. So
I wonder what the...
I don't know. I'm an old school fish keeper. I have never thrown a penny in my tank.
No.
But maybe I'm missing something. Okay, let me roll around here in the chat area that is not all crunched up together. Gabriel says, thanks for all you do for us. Well, thank you. What is an easy way to curb aggression between fish? I have 2 female convicts fighting. Should I separate them? Probably. With the South and Central Americans, very rarely, part of it depends on the size of the tank. I say probably if you got them like in a 180, then maybe you can get away with adding more structure, rocks, wood, just so that they can maybe not see each other as much. But convicts can be kind of hard on one another. And if they're in a smaller tank, anything certainly less than a 4-foot tank, that problem is never going to get solved. Even a 4-foot tank for full-grown convicts can be problematic. So sometimes it's best just to have one and not have them constantly locking lips and whipping each other around the tank. It's just, it can happen. If you got a 6-foot tank, like I said, adding structure may be helpful. I think what a lot of people don't realize with the and I'm sure I don't know how large your convicts are, but those convicts get pretty large, and they are definitely assertive. You know, you put the convicts in with other fish like Jack Dempsey's and the Texas cichlids and stuff, and they hold their own just fine. Crazily enough, it's true. What you got?
Did you get the one about scaping a hospital tank with the standard meds won't hurt?
Yes.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah, we talked the whole big thing. You
I
did.
know, but there's been a number of questions regarding similar issues.
Yes, and I think we came to a consensus that, or at least in my own brain, came to a consensus, minimalize it as much as you can. Well, I said, would taking rocks from the Great Lakes, Lake Ontario, and putting them in the tanks be okay, or is it that dumb and could bring disease? Well, it could bring disease. The way to minimize that with the rocks is obviously you wash them off with a wire brush, just get all the dirt and debris off of them. Don't boil rocks, because depending on the porous, how porous the rock is, they could explode. I always tell this story. We were away on vacation one time, and somebody had the people before us had outlined the little fire pit area with rocks. And then we started, I didn't pay much attention to it. Actually, I wasn't even down there, the one who started the fire, but one of my buddies started the fire, and we're sitting there at the back of this cabin, and all of a sudden I hear bing, ding, bing, ding, and it's coming off the back. I'm like, what is there? Something flying into this cabin? What is going on here? The rocks were exploding because they were getting hot, and the hot air was exploding them. They were basically setting out little rock missiles everywhere. The same thing can happen if you boil rocks. So to make them safe, you have some options. First thing I would do is just wash them. Make sure that there's no dirt or anything on them. The second thing after that, you can use a 10% bleach solution. Soak the rocks for a day or so, and then you can soak them in plain water. And then let them dry. Sun drying can do a lot to minimize the risk as well. So that's generally the way that I try to maximize their safety. Nanners, what's up? Thank you so much for the super chat. Hello. Why do so many Geophagus species, even from different regions, have the same dark spot in the middle of their body? Thank you. Thank you. You so smart. I don't know about that, but thank you. That is obviously the wild type look for a lot of those Geophagus. They do have that spot. Why that is there, I don't remember. I think I used to know the answer to that question. I don't remember if that was a mating cue for the Geophagus that has just been maintained throughout all these different populations. But clearly the early populations of Geophagus had that spot, and that has been something that through natural selection has been maintained over time. But I thought that black spot, and again, it has been a long time since I did my research on why that spot exists, but I thought that was some type of a structure that is used for mating. Rachel, thank you very much for the super chat. Hi. So last week I asked about Dwarf acaras. I have weeded it down to Laeticara curviceps, or I never even heard of the other one. Dosagera? Any info would be helpful. I haven't heard of the first one, but curviceps are great fish. The curviceps are really pretty. So they get kind of like a yellow. I've had them before. They get a little bit of yellow. They get this kind of like this black sort of mask to them a little bit. Very chilled out. And I thought last week we were talking about Nanacara. Was that the same conversation? Which were the really small ones. I said they look like electric blue acara. The curviceps are very different. The curviceps are definitely a pretty fish. Don't get super big. Color-wise, they're usually kind of a brownish tan. They tend to have a little bit more interesting color if they're on a lighter substrate with a lighter background. When you get them on dark, like a black gravel with a black background, they tend to muddy up a little bit and get more brown. But they're really relatively easy fish to keep, easy fish to feed. Depending on your water parameters, for the most part, our water for the most part was a little bit too hard, pH a little bit too high for them to successfully breed. I just don't think our tank was set up well for them, but most people don't have a whole lot of trouble breeding them. So nice, they're great fish. Davey, thank you so much for the super chat. Have a 20 long with Similis. I've been breeding well. I've decided to go another way. How do you suggest I remove them? They go right for their shells. Okay, so here's the way I would suggest. You can catch as many as you can that are not in the shells if you want to sell them off, bring them to a pet store. If you've got some stubborn ones, you could just take the whole shell, chuck them in a bucket, chuck them in a bag, and be like, hey, there's Snails in here. I don't know how many there are. Give me some money, whatever you think is in there. If there's not as many as we thought, I'll give you money back. If there's more than we thought, hey, you win. Or you could do the following. Get a 5-gallon bucket. Put some large rocks, softball size rocks, baseball size rocks in the bottom of that bucket. Fill it up about halfway with rocks. Put a piece of like egg crate, right? So that white stuff that's kind of looks like a waffle. Put a piece of egg crate on top of that. Drop an air stone in the bucket. Make sure, air stone or sponge filter, make sure that water is the same. It could even be tank water from your tank. When you want to remove the fish, if the fish go in the shells, take the shells, chuck them on top of the egg crate. Put a little light on top. Generally speaking, what happens is shell dwellers don't like to be near the surface of the water. And so if they exit the shell, often, and they look down and there's more space down there, they're probably going to go down into the rocks. Take the egg crate off, take the shells out, probably put the shells back in the tank just in case there are still some in the shells themselves. Very carefully and very gently remove the rocks and see how many shell dwellers are down at the bottom of the bucket. Sometimes it works. Sometimes your shell dwellers are a little bit smarter than us and they're like, going down there. I'm staying with my shell. I know what you're trying to do to me. You listen to that guy on the internet. I heard what he said too. My little buddies told me. And my little mind is staying in my shell. Whips World Sunglasses Man. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Crown Tail. Hello. Hey, Mr. 47. That's Whip, Mr. 47.
That's Whip, yeah. Uh-huh. All right, this is from Hip Hop Hillbilly. Seen a YouTube video where a guy has a tank from SeaWorld, 5,000 plus gallons, 30 feet long by 6 foot wide, 4 feet high. What would you stock in a tank that size?
Initially, I would do something that probably most people wouldn't do, and that is 30 feet long, 6 feet high, 4 feet wide, roughly 5,000 gallons. I would make it some type of crazy nano tank, heavily planted, heavily scaped, sort of just you're peering into a big giant river. And so I could see a situation where I've got 500 rainbow fish in that tank of all different types. I mean, just strikingly beautiful rainbow fish. I could see a situation where in that tank you might find a dozen different really high-end, gorgeous plecos that you might not see very often, but when you see them, it is truly something special. I would probably put in, and I don't care this is not a biotope, like, oh, you got Australian fish in there, you got fish. I don't care. You ask me what I would do, I'm just going to do this thing. I would probably put in 100, at least 100, either Adelphi cories or orange laser cory cats, because I think that would be pretty awesome. For algae, I might throw in a dozen long fin, blue-eyed albino type bristlenose plecos, because I think that would be pretty awesome. At least a dozen, let them breed. What else would I put in there? I might throw in 100 pearl gouramis, just because I think it would give such a cool vibe. Maybe I would do 10 or 15 of the different types of angelfish. What about you? I know what you're going to say, so I purposely left out your fish.
I would put in 2,000 green neons, 500 chili rasboras, 100 embers, and 4 dozen pygmy cories.
That's it? You realize you'd barely see those fish in a 5,000 gallon tank.
That's just conservatively speaking.
Oh, just to start.
Just to to
right.
get it started. Yeah.
That would be pretty awesome. I would probably also put in a few hundred of the rummy nose rasboras. I'm really liking those fish lately.
Just a few hundred.
Just a few hundred. I mean,
although if I'm putting in the green neons, I'd probably put in green cubitais too.
Yeah, you could easily put in probably 1,000 of each and not even blink an eye with that.
Blink.
Yeah, Whip says 10,000 green neons. I'm in a 5,000 gallon tank. Believe me, to get a school of green neons. So first of all, I've seen something similar to what you're talking about at the Wonders of Wildlife Aquarium. They have a 3,000 gallon discus tank, and in that tank they've got cardinal tetras and rummy nose tetras, and the cardinals actually stay together somewhat. Remember, they would swim back and forth. I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds are in there, but not nearly enough, even in that 3,000 gallon tank, and it's not nearly as long as what you're talking about. That it's still not close to being enough to make it like, wow, that's striking. Wow. Yeah, they'd need another 1,000 in there at least. That's my opinion on the matter.
Okay, I'd like to change my number to 100,000.
Oh my! All right, now we're getting a little crazy.
Would it be funny?
Just for the record,
they can't move.
If you've got a 5,000 gallon tank, you might not want to put 100,000 green neons in there. You did not say that for reals.
Oh my gosh, okay? I'm just kidding.
Just giving bad fish advice. My gosh.
Can you imagine? Oh my gosh, the cost of 100,000 green neons.
That would be insane. Yeah. Whip says, have you guys done this handle thing yet? Yeah, the handle thing is, I don't know. I don't understand what it is. So like YouTube handles. Now you can do at Primetime Aquatics or something, kind of like an Instagram sort of Facebook thing where you can, I don't know, notify people or something.
Oh.
So, yeah. Jason says, I enjoyed that, but I better go get an hour or two of shut-eye before getting up again. Thanks, really enjoyed that. It's now 4:15 here. Cheers. Well, yeah, you get some sleep. Thanks for being here.
Get some sleep.
Yeah. Chris says, Jason's dream tank. The other direction I could go with that tank I just said, and it would be an equally likely thing to do, is throw in that 5,000 gallon, 30-foot tank, a bunch of Geophagus.
Yeah,
a bunch of different types. Yeah, so
that
I could
would be
do.
Amazing.
You could, in a tank like that, maybe do 15 wine milleri, 15 tapajos. They probably start to inhabit different areas and roll like that. And still do the rainbow fish. You could still do the angelfish. A lot of the schooling stuff that we talked about, the plecos, but just add the geos in there as instead of maybe like the pearl gouramis, do the geos instead. That would be pretty cool. That would be pretty close to a dream tank. Yeah.
Herd 209, one betta.
In a 5,000 gallon, yeah. That would be the fun. Go find the betta.
Where's Waldo? And you'd have to name it Waldo.
Yep. With your luck, the thing would just find a leaf, and it would just want to sit there all the time.
Oh my gosh,
like,
yeah.
You know what? I've got all this space, but I have found an Anubias leaf exactly where I like it, and you're going to have to come over here and feed me. Pittman says 2,500 guppies in a 5,000 gallon. Yeah, it definitely has some action, that's for sure. One take, thank you so much for the super chat. Signs to look for when guppies close to birth. So generally speaking, when the guppies are like really close, a lot of the live bearers, they just kind of sort of sit near the one part of the tank and they just kind of waddle around. They're big, and sometimes they'll have a little bit, little more respiration going on, rapid rate of respiration, and then they give birth and they look a little smaller and look a little worn out for a few days, and get them eaten again. So usually they sometimes will slow down and just find a place in the tank to chill out for a little bit.
Oh, so Oinkmaster says your giant Salvinia purchased at an auction is doing well. It's absolutely beautiful. Looks like a stacked Salvinia accordion. Cool.
Nice.
Wow.
Second floor says she put 1,000 coolie loaches in the 5. Yeah, 1,000. And you know what? You
Can you
probably do
imagine that
more, because
craziness?
even 1,000. First of all, they like if you give them enough hiding spots, you'd be like, where the heck did my 1,000 coolie loaches go? The other thing that would be cool in a tank that size are a nice big group of clown loaches. Like doing like a dozen, 12, 15, 18 clown loaches to go with your Geophagus, because a 5,000 gallon tank, and probably watch them get to their full potential. How cool would that be?
Wait, so in a 5,000 gallon tank, how about like 3,000 anableps?
No, you couldn't put
That'd be
3,000
crazy.
in there.
all you would see is
eyes.
But this is
everywhere.
like
It'd
a
be so
cartoon.
creepy.
It's like a cartoon.
Yeah.
Little eyes. Be like, what's up there on the water? Those are eyes.
I don't know why. Of all the fish that you've ever seen in your life, that the anableps is something that constantly pops into your brain. Anableps
They're
are
funny.
the fish where the eyes stick out of the top of the water. We saw them at the Cleveland Aquarium, and they are actually really cool.
They're awesome. They're like
Yeah.
Muppets.
Yep.
They're Muppet fish.
Yep.
Someday.
Name non-existent says you need some pink and black neons. Yeah, the black, we love black neons. For me, are one of my favorites because
I've
they're so
got
hardy.
those,
They do
yeah.
really well in our water. They just seem to live forever for us. I mean, I've had black neons. They're like, oh my gosh, this thing is still kicking after 6 or 7 years. What's wrong with this? Yeah.
That would be really cool, though. The equivalent of the green neon, but instead it would be a pink neon.
Well, they have was it the pink or are you referencing the albino? Because they have some pretty cool ones.
Have I not seen them yet?
I don't know.
Well,
they're not
it's
that
just
uncommon.
like the rice fish. I want to get me some in different colors. Have you seen them in different colors?
Yeah, I've seen them in different colors.
Just saying.
They're pretty cool. Jude says tiger barbs die one by one after I buy them. Yeah, that's very common. So, a couple things. One, make sure you've got a really big group. So if you can house a big group. So I generally won't keep tiger barbs in anything less than a 4-foot tank, because I just feel like less than that, they start picking each other off. So generally speaking, if you ever see tiger barbs in my fish room, most likely it's going to be in a 6-foot tank. Most likely I'm going to start with at least 20 to 25. And hopefully that will minimize them picking each other off. I don't know if that happened in your case, but that can happen. Her 209, 10,000 hatchet fish with a few hundred archers. 10,000 hatchet fish would be something. For certain. For certain it would be.
For sure, for sure.
For sure. That's what I meant to say. Sergey says, I have emerald green tiger barbs. Beautiful. Yeah, a lot of people asked about when I did the video on Aquashella, there were some green tiger barbs in there that were really pretty. They were just showing off such great color on that lighter substrate. Yeah, it was
Beautiful.
pretty sweet.
Beautiful.
It was pretty sweet. All right, we'll answer a couple more, and then we'll call it a night. Let you all get to some shut-eye here. Jude says Medaka. Yeah, we've got Medaka rice. What do we have downstairs? Is that Medaka rice fish? Still hanging out in
platinum.
Yeah, but I thought those were Medakas. Maybe not.
I thought they
Yeah,
were platinum.
but I think that's just the name.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know enough. I'm not an expert rice fish. The only one
I'm
I
not
really have bred before
Like
are the
the
Javas.
specific names and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the Javas. Yeah, rice fish are really cool. Little eggs stick to their anal fin, the females. So they swim around with the eggs stuck to them. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know why.
Interesting.
I've done this like 3 or 4 times, and I know better. But there have been past videos where I'm like, yeah, then the live bear, the rice fish. I'm like, it's not a live bear. I know that. I watched them with their sticky little eggs sticking to them, and yet for some reason, I don't know. Maybe it's because they look like mollies or like tiny mollies. In my brain, I always equate them to live bears, and they're not. It's just a dumb thing that I do. It's a dumb thing that I do. Molly says, I would buy a shark. What kind of shark? Rainbow
Aw,
shark?
That would be really fun to get, like
Yeah.
a really tiny one. Remember the one at an Aquashella? Was it last year, Florida? They had a little shark that was like this big. He was
baby
kind of
shark?
cute. He was a baby shark. But can you imagine a really big tank with a little baby shark? Kind of cute. Thanks for that.
Right before you go to bed.
No, that's so mean. That's great.
That's for you. That's for all of you. That's your nighttime song. So I hope that song is stuck in all your brains for the rest of the
Nice.
night. And you wake up in the morning and there it is. You're singing baby shark. Because now you know what's going to happen. It's stuck in my brain. I just did it to myself. I'm sorry.
Lucas says that he saw tricolor ricefish. He's in love.
Nice.
I would be too.
Tricolor ricefish. Silver, gray, silver. No, I'm just kidding. That's pretty funny right there.
That's funny.
Yeah. Whips World, I hate you so much. Well, you know, I understand. I understand that everybody can, you know, fully embrace the baby shark. All right, everybody. After that wonderful little song that I whistled for you, I hope you all have a wonderful evening and a great week. And I really hope that you're back next week. And I mostly promise I won't sing Baby Shark again next week. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for the moderators for being here. Thank you for all the super chat, super stickers, and all the cool stuff and the new members. We will see you again next week. Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye, everybody.
See ya.